Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands and dust off your broomsticks and join us as we unlock the mysteries behind Dumbledore's big plan, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Boy, howdy. Dumbledore's big plan. We have made it to the end of yet another book. Check mark.
Yes.
End of sentence.
End of sentence. We made it to the end of another book. And so as is tradition here, we're going to talk about how Dumbledore, or how Prisoner of Azkaban fit into Dumbledore's big plan, which, as a refresher, is the idea that Dumbledore has kind of been pulling the strings on Harry's life basically the whole time, kind of from behind the scenes, and he's doing it in unique ways by means of giving him the invisibility cloak in an empty castle and letting him wander around so that he can find the Mirror of Erised, so that he can see what Harry's greatest desires are.
Yes.
Because Dumbledore is unique in that, one, not only is he the most capable person of organizing against Voldemort, but he is the only one who knows the prophecy and knows Harry's true importance. So he everything he does, he knows Voldemort is going to come back and that Harry will have to defeat him. And everything he does is operating under making sure that happens.
I mean, arguably operating under his original premise of the greater good.
The greater good.
Which is something that Harry ultimately himself brings up during or shortly after his final battle with Voldemort.
Yeah.
I think it's while he's having that circular conversation. He's no, he knew better. He knew to fight for the greater good.
Right.
Something along those lines. But so that's everything in a nutshell. Is Dumbledore is sort of making some sacrifices that will impact the other students, but everything is kind of in the name of this bizarre ethical middle ground where there is a prophecy at stake.
Yeah.
And so it's because there is a known outcome available, it's he does sort of need to do everything he possibly can to make Harry as ready as humanly possible for when the day eventually comes that he has to face this stuff down. So the other kind of token example is why would he hire Professor Lockhart
Exactly.
in Chamber of Secrets? And the big idea there is that it seems all the professors kind of know that Lockhart is a buffoon. It seems a lot of the students are picking up on the fact that he's just a fraud.
That he doesn't know how to do anything. And even when at the end, Lockhart's spell backfires and he erases his own memory, Dumbledore says to him, impaled upon your own sword, eh, Gilderoy? Implying that he's known the whole time.
Yes, exactly. So it's one of those things where it's Dumbledore, what were you doing? Was he the only applicant for the job? Or, Snape's over there? He certainly would have.
Exactly, yeah.
Would have loved to have done it.
Stuff like that. So, but the reason is that Lockhart represents everything that is wrong with fame and vanity and notoriety and how not to act, which is a way he's afraid Harry could act because he's already famous.
Right. I mean, Harry has sort of had an interesting life because, for one, he didn't know he was a wizard for most of it.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he is thrust into this wizarding world, he is a very kind and kind of quiet kid, but he also is instantly thrust into the spotlight. He is well known by people who meet him from the second he walks into the Leaky Cauldron with Hagrid. Ollivander makes a big fuss about his arrival there.
Yeah.
Ron is wowed by the scar on his forehead, as are the rest of the Weasleys. He, gets into school where he's sorted into Gryffindor and promptly makes the Quidditch team, which is the only person in a
to
century.
have done it. And then he's sort of a Quidditch hero, and then he saves the Sorcerer's Stone, and he defeats Quirrell, and he wins the House Cup. So he comes out of his first year with extreme notoriety, to back up his pre-existing fame.
Exactly.
And so Dumbledore is I gotta cut the just head this off right away.
Right. It's because you can imagine that Dumbledore is he's still a kid, he's still a little impressionable, and this has been a pretty magnificent first year for him. It's maybe time to tamp down,
Right.
what we don't want him to turn into. So anyway, such is Gilderoy Lockhart. But the really fascinating thing about Prisoner of Azkaban is that I feel like while we were doing our chapter by chapter breakdowns for Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets respectively, we had lots of insight along the way about Dumbledore's big plan. And I can't say with absolute recollection, but it felt like as we were going through Prisoner, we were bringing it up far less often.
Right.
Which I actually think makes plenty of sense because Dumbledore's role in Prisoner ends up being far more reactionary.
Right.
He's not anticipating Sirius Black's release from prison, or not release, but escape from prison.
Escape from prison.
We do not believe that he has orchestrated such a thing because the underlying major detail is that Dumbledore will believe that Sirius is in fact guilty along with everyone else for the better part of this whole story.
Yeah, so for I think how we're going to try and break this down is we're going to kind of go through like what Dumbledore did and did not know, what he believed and did not believe going into the year, what lessons he intended for Harry to learn that year, what situations he capitalized on to teach Harry lessons that year, and in what ways he was simply being reactionary to the situation.
A proper outline.
A proper outline. Hey, here we go. We don't have our books today. We have just a nice little outline here for you. But before we dive on in, I would like to remind everyone that Through the Griffin Door is going back on tour.
Yes, indeed. We are going to the Southeast, where we're going to be kicking off in February of 2025 with Charlotte, and then Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, Atlanta, and Nashville.
Yeah, we are.
There's something about saying Tampa and then Atlanta like 3 words later that always makes me think in my head that I said Atlanta twice.
Yeah, no, but what we didn't. It's Atlanta, Georgia, and Tampa Bay, Florida.
Yes. It's going to be just a absolute blast of a time. If it is any reflection of the last 2 tours that we've been on, I am so ridiculously excited. As per always, we're going to be doing a live episode of Jay vs. Ben where we will actually collect questions from the attendees themselves, who will be asked to come forward and present us with that question. Jay and I will have, of course, no idea.
Yeah, we'll do our best to answer it.
Yes. You guys are very, very challenging.
And then we will, of course, do the show. Do this show.
Yes.
We'll be in the middle of Goblet of Fire at that time. If you want to check out on the website which city will be getting which chapter, we've outlined all of that there. Tickets are already on sale as well. So again, if you go to supercarlinbrothers.com, click on the events tab, you can sort to what city you want to come to and buy. We'll see you in person.
Well, we'll see you in person. Yeah. And if you'd like to do the VIP upgrade, that does come with a signed tour poster as well as like a photo op and autograph session moment type thing.
Yeah.
If you want to ask us a question.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see as many of you as possible out on the road in February 2025. I cannot wait. But for now, let's jump into Prisoner of Azkaban, Dumbledore's big plan.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. So I think going into it, I remember when the first time we were writing Dumbledore's big plan about Prisoner of Azkaban, and like one of the questions you get all the time is like, Dumbledore must have known Sirius was innocent, right? I feel like that is a common belief that Dumbledore actually did know that and was just sort of like orchestrating stuff so that Harry would learn about that. But that is not true.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that is like the essential piece to keep in mind. And I think it's why there's so few like major glaring instances, because I think it's not that Dumbledore wasn't coming into year 3 with various intentions, and a lot of those intentions I think are able to be extracted from the circumstances.
Yeah.
Like Dementors end up being something that he wants to ready Harry for as a potential ally to the dark forces as Voldemort, returns to power.
Yeah.
And so it's like the fact that Dementors will be involved at school ends up being something that he's able to ultimately use.
I think he's able to, like, it works. I mean, it doesn't work out nicely. I'm sure he'd prefer the Dementors weren't there.
Right.
But I do think whether or not the Dementors had been stationed around the school, Dumbledore did intend for Harry to learn about them this year. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yes, indeed.
So first things first, what does Dumbledore know and or believe, and what does he not know? So we already said he definitely does believe that Sirius Black is guilty, that Sirius Black was the Potter's secret keeper and that he killed 12 Muggles and Peter Pettigrew.
Yes, so that's a good one to include as well,
Yeah.
because it means that despite the fact that Dumbledore does seem to have this kind of like all-knowing, omniscient sort of perspective over Hogwarts, like the fact that Peter Pettigrew has been there with him for 2 full years up until this moment, he's completely unaware of.
He's unaware of that. He also does not know that the Marauders were animagi, that they could turn into animals. He says I think when he's talking to Harry, he says, like, I talked to Sirius last night. He told me how they all became animagi and, a truly amazing feat, not the least of which was keeping it secret from me.
Yes.
So, like, he admits he did not know. Like, they successfully kept it from him, which is impressive for them. But caveat, he does obviously know that Lupin is a werewolf, because that's like he's the one who arranged for Lupin to come to school. That's why the Whomping Willow was planted there, why the Shrieking Shack was built, which of course Dumbledore did all the interior decorating on.
Naturally, yes. Yeah, I picked out the wallpaper, all that type of stuff.
All
The gigantic bed.
Put up the little fence around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't know about that, and he does not know about the Marauders map. He does not intend for Fred and George to give it to him or something.
Honestly, this book is a real love letter to the Marauders, which is
Obviously,
obvious.
yeah.
But it's also very impressive what they were able to get away with without Dumbledore discovering them.
It is, yeah. It's it speaks to just how skilled they really were.
Yes.
All around. So that is kind of everything that Dumbledore believes going into the year, and the serious one's important because it's to him, he has to react a lot to this situation because Sirius Black being out is an enormous threat to Harry, because again, Dumbledore already knows the prophecy and knows that Harry has to be the one to defeat Voldemort. One must die at the hand of the other. But that also does not mean that Harry is just invincible to death unless Voldemort kills him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This kind of goes back to the conversation that Dumbledore and Harry will have in Order of the Phoenix, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. About Horcruxes and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Where he's essentially telling him have to, of course you have to, but not because the prophecy says so.
Right.
And I think what he's trying to outline there is that not all prophecies in the Hall of Prophecy necessarily come to fruition.
Right.
And it's what makes Harry's position so locked in is that Voldemort takes stock in the prophecy. So
yes.
Voldemort is not going to stop. So if Harry does nothing, then Voldemort will just beat him.
Yeah.
He will die at the hand of the other.
Right. Voldemort puts stock in prophecy, and he won't let anybody else try and kill Harry.
Right.
Which is to his detriment, because if he just did, he'd win no problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so he's constantly leave Potter to me, do nothing.
Right. He is very convinced that this is super important and vital.
Yeah. And I mean, but in the meantime, of course, they've got the Death Eaters surround him in the Department of Mysteries, could easily kill him.
Yeah.
The Nagini is squeezing him basically to death, but instead of killing him, summons Voldemort.
Right.
The Malfoys and Bellatrix have him in their house, locked in their basement, and can absolutely kill him, and he keeps getting away.
I know, yeah. I mean, it's we've joked about it for years and years and years now, but it is comical the extent to which Voldemort is his own worst enemy in terms of achieving his goals.
Yes.
But so yeah, the very important point as it pertains to Dumbledore is that the news of Sirius Black's release is news to him that means that somebody out there who betrayed, or who he believes betrayed Harry's parents, is now potentially on the hunt for Harry himself.
Yes, and I mean, he's going to go on to consistently reinforce Dumbledore's beliefs that it's true, because it's as he says, Sirius has not acted like an innocent man.
Right.
He literally breaks into the castle twice.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the manner in which he does so on both occasions, slashing the portrait of the fat lady, it's he's not even doing it in a way that it follows so neatly that tone of voice that he has in the Shrieking Shack, where you're just Sirius, pick your words better, my friend. It's you're making yourself sound so guilty. You're saying you did it.
Sirius is not. He's so good at magic, but so bad at words.
Yes,
it seems like.
Well said. Well
yes.
said.
But so either way, Dumbledore sees Sirius as a huge problem, because as far as he's concerned, like Sirius was an amazing student in school, like one of the best.
Yes.
And he successfully like lied to Dumbledore. He was a mole in Dumbledore, and not in Dumbledore's army, in the Order of the Phoenix.
Right.
You know, he got, and he broke out of Azkaban, something that's supposed to be impossible. Like
Right.
he's just extremely dangerous, which is why one of Dumbledore's first like reactionary things is to make sure the Weasleys do not invite Harry over to their house.
Yes, yeah, which is, I mean, you might think like, okay, is he really going like that far? But it's kind of interesting because the Weasleys extend invite to Harry every single summer, except for in Philosopher's Stone, which they
don't know him yet.
They don't know him yet.
Yeah.
And in Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, and then in like Order of the Phoenix, they just go to the headquarters, which is where the Weasleys are living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he still goes and lives with
Yeah.
them in the meantime. So yeah. So the thing that Dumbledore is doing here is trying to take full advantage of the bond of blood charm,
Yes.
which has been placed upon Harry, making him completely untouchable while he is staying at Petunia's household.
Yes.
Yep.
So that is what he's trying to make sure. Because, and it's like, you might think like, oh, but like, what does that have to do with the Weasleys like going to Egypt? Couldn't they have just like not invited him? Like that would have been pretty suspicious. Like there's no way Ron's not inviting them. But you're like, oh, but does that mean Dumbledore arranged the lottery winnings? And it's like, I don't think he arranged it, but I also don't think they needed it to go on this vacation.
Right, because essentially what you have happen the very Christmas prior
In Chamber of Secrets.
In Chamber of Secrets is all of the Weasley kids stay behind at the castle.
Yes.
While Arthur and Molly go and visit Bill in Egypt.
Yes.
Like the exact trip that they take on their summer vacation with their massive winnings is the same trip they just took.
Yes.
And I if I'm not mistaken, it even seems like they all chose to not go.
They elect not to go and just stay at the castle, meaning they could have gone with them then, meaning they don't need the money to bring the whole family to Egypt.
Right.
Yes. Perhaps they were just living it up a little more extravagantly while they were there.
Right.
This go round. But the reason, of course, I'm sure Dumbledore asks them to go to Egypt is so that Harry doesn't have a place to go and will be forced to stay at the Dursleys, which is another greater good situation. Because obviously it's terrible for Harry to be there, but in the end, it is where he is literally the safest. And you're going to see Dumbledore try and pull the exact same stunt with Hogsmeade later on.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yep, you sure are. But in the meantime, though, there's obviously some other factors involved while Harry is back at the Dursleys, not the least of which is the infamous visit from Aunt Maud.
Yes, Harry is going to be really good at circumventing Dumbledore's plans in this book.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously, Dumbledore's big thing is here, like, he's like, I know you're not happy while you are there, but you are, in fact, safe while you are there, and that is paramount given the very specific circumstances and your importance to the prophecy overall. But that is not enough to defend against Marge, who comes in and is just, I mean, and I can't stress it enough, just the literal worst.
The literal worst person.
I mean, she might give Umbridge a run for her money.
I mean, they're the same character, just in Muggle or magical form.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They're coded otherwise exactly
They are
the same.
otherwise coded. The other one, yeah, there's just one switch that was flipped, and this one was magic, and this one was Muggle.
Right.
And otherwise, they're pretty much, yeah, very similar.
So Harry obviously gets very understandably upset at Aunt Marge for the horrific things that she's saying, blows her up, and decides that he's just going to leave the Dursleys altogether.
Yeah, on his own.
Something that I'm sure Dumbledore was immediately made privy to and was like, no, 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 no.
And he's like, wait, what? Are you kidding me? He left on his own? Can he do that? What if he runs into Sirius like right away or something? Which he does.
Which he does.
Yeah.
Which he does. Fortunately, Harry does manage to rein in the night bus, where he takes it over to
Diagon Alley.
where he will ultimately run into Cornelius Fudge, who's basically just going to be like, we don't send people to Azkaban for blowing up their aunts.
Yes, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. A tune he'll change in book 5. But,
Yep. Yes, indeed. But while he's there, there's a couple of kind of like interesting things that are going on, because he's going to continue to live at Diagon Alley for a few weeks.
At the
leading up
Leaky
to school.
Cauldron.
Yep.
Yeah. And it seems like that, like Dumbledore's new round of security comes in the form of like it's just too public a space for Sirius, who is like while his escape is like has high notoriety around it. So it's like the general publicness of Diagon Alley and the like ministry kind of being there looking out for Harry is sort of the new layer of defense. If he can't be at the Dursleys, if he can't be at the Dursleys, at least he is in a place that Sirius absolutely wants to avoid.
Right. But that doesn't mean that Dumbledore doesn't still have eyes on the ground.
Eyes on the ground
on Harry, and this is I do sort of love this. This is like one of those things I just think is kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
But we do know that sort of like one of the things that Harry famously does while he's spending these weeks at the Leaky Cauldron is going and just enjoying a tremendous amount of ice cream from one Florian Fortescue, which you might be like, okay, how on earth does ice cream relate back to Dumbledore's big plan? But basically what it comes down to is that Florian Fortescue's ancestor,
Dexter Fortescue,
is a former headmaster at Hogwarts.
Meaning that he has got a portrait in the headmaster's office.
Yes.
And this is not confirmed in the books, but I would bet you some money here that Florian Fortescue has a portrait of Dexter Fortescue somewhere on the premises that can flit back and forth between the two portraits, similar to Phineas Nigellus, and who can just report back to Dumbledore about Harry's doings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So Dumbledore is still keeping watchful eyes on him, and it's like you might think, well, like what about like Dementors in Diagon Alley or whatever? And I think that obviously, at least from Dumbledore's perspective, this is the preferred method of watching over him because he hates
Dementors.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also kind of like lightly explains why Florian Fortescue would give Harry free ice cream every day for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, what kind of business model is that?
I know, that's I mean, it's nice of him for sure.
Right.
But like, I don't know. It feels like it makes a little more sense,
Right.
Why would you keep Harry, I'm sure, would be happy to pay for the ice cream every day.
I'm certain he would.
Yeah, no big deal. You give a 13-year-old boy literal unlimited freedom in a wizard alley where there's an ice cream shop, he's going to go get some ice cream, man.
He's going to get some ice cream.
Yeah.
This is going to work out just fine.
It's going to work out just good.
Otherwise, it does feel like almost even like a little like maybe creepy if Florian just keeps like walking up and be like, more ice cream, Mr. Potter.
More ice cream.
Please take more.
I know, because he also like chats with him every day too. And like helps him with his homework and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he's spending a lot of time with him.
He's spending a lot of time with him. And I don't think that's any accident. I think that is on Dumbledore's orders. Eventually, though, the Weasleys do show up at Diagon Alley, and they're all staying at the Leaky Cauldron with Harry. And this is where you have an interesting situation where you have the argument between Molly and Arthur, where Arthur wants to tell Harry that Sirius is after him.
Right.
And Molly is like, no, he's too young to know that. We can't burden him with that information.
Right.
And, obviously, it seems like Dumbledore wants Harry to know.
It seems like Dumbledore would want Harry to know. And so you might be wondering a little bit like, well, and this sort of goes back, we almost need to backtrack just a tiny bit here, but we've always sort of operated under the belief that Molly and Arthur are actually working as agents, if you will, on behalf of Dumbledore's big plan. So they both are deeply concerned and do care tremendously for Harry and his safety.
Yeah.
And they believe that Dumbledore has Harry's safety at his core.
Yeah.
And so basically everything they're doing is to try to, further and ensure that alongside Dumbledore. So the big question here is what is the point, or why would Molly and Arthur be disagreeing about whether or not to follow what we would believe is Dumbledore's order in this instance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically Arthur just thinks that they should tell him this, and Molly thinks they shouldn't.
Right.
And it's sort of that might seem well, if they're in disagreement about it, why would doesn't that kind of prove they're not part of Dumbledore's big plan? But I don't think so, because it won't be the last time that Molly just disagrees with Dumbledore.
Sure.
When he gets to the Order of the Phoenix, and she's like, "Oh, we're not telling you anything. Don't think so." And the rest of the order is like, "Nah, we're going to tell him.
We should tell him.
We should tell him.
He deserves to know.
He deserves to know, except for that one big thing.
Except for the one big thing.
Except for the one big thing that if we just told him now, the whole book could be avoided. But, don't tell him that.
Yeah, don't tell him that.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah, the secret weapon that he didn't have before, that's actually just a ball.
That's actually just a ball, and he still never gets it, and it wouldn't matter if he did. So,
Hey, Order of the Phoenix is a great book, but it is sort of like a glaring hole.
there is, that's whatever.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Not the
Anyway,
point.
so Harry eventually makes it to school, and then we have Dumbledore. The next piece of Dumbledore's plan is to keep Harry out of Hogsmeade. Another bit of his reactionariness. I don't think because it like this is something that kind of like falls in his lap because if the Dursleys had just signed his form, then there would be nothing he could do about it. But they didn't, so he sort of has this scapegoat, like whoops. And he takes full advantage of it to not let Harry go to Hogsmeade.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like the kind of thing that like Dumbledore knows Harry's particular home life situation.
Yeah.
Dumbledore does not think highly of the Dursleys. I think that this is the kind of arena. I mean, he literally sends Hagrid to take Harry from them in year one. So it's not as if there's not a circumstance where, given the unusual circumstances, Dumbledore's not just like, I knew they were never going to sign it. Like, you're fine to go. Enjoy yourself, Harry. Have a great time.
Right.
Be a child.
Right.
Do child things.
Right. Like in the past 2 years, Harry has destroyed a Horcrux, killed a basilisk, and come literally face to back of the face with Voldemort and beaten him.
Right.
Like, but can't have you walking around a village unless your aunt and uncle say so. Like, are you kidding me?
You're absolutely awful, aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that's definitely one of those things where it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna play the technicality card. And I feel like there's even a scene where like McGonagall is sort of like, I'm sorry, Potter.
I know. It's just like she knows it's just like, I would bend the rules for you here, but I literally cannot because it's not the danger is Sirius Black.
You know what the other point in this favor is as well is at the end of this year, Sirius is just going to send a handwritten note that just says like, "I, Sirius Black, Harry Potter's godfather, permit him grant permission to go to Hogsmeade Village."
Yeah,
and it's like, Dumbledore is the only one who's going to be willing to allow that to be permissible.
Yeah.
I don't even think McGonagall, who would still believe
that Sirius is guilty.
Is guilty. I don't think she's going to think it's enough.
Yeah.
So it's like Dumbledore's the one who's going to get to have final say, and he's going to be the one who thinks, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But it's because the threat of Sirius Black being on the loose has now been removed.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's definitely Dumbledore's plan at work. However, similar to fleeing the Dursleys, Harry circumvents this idea too.
He does.
Not even on purpose, but just because Fred and George show up and get all maraudery on him and give him the map.
I know.
Which something that's going to be so annoying for Dumbledore. He's like, wait, what? Wait, he did what? How?
I wonder if this is why he's pacing in his office all the time.
I know.
He's just going back and
does that a lot.
Yeah, does that a lot because he's thinking about Harry.
Yeah. Oh man. So while Dumbledore, it's very funny for Dumbledore's big plan because he is trying so hard to keep Harry safe this year and just totally failing. And not that Harry is ever in danger.
Right.
From Sirius anyway, but he is not doing a good job at executing his plans of keeping Harry in safe places.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Which I think is funny. So anyway, moving on to what Dumbledore's, I think, actual intended plan for Harry this year was. Had Sirius not broken out, like what was he going to try and teach him anyway?
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Because a lot of what we've brought up so far is reacting to the Sirius Black news.
Yes.
And so I think the first thing we have to look at is kind of like one of the major things we talk about in Chamber of Secrets, but it's who he hires to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Yes.
And in this particular year, it's going to be Remus John Lupin.
Remus John Lupin, indeed. So Lupin's hire is like very layered and skillfully done by Dumbledore because one, not only is it one of Harry's dad's friends, but he is an extremely good teacher who they learn a ton from anyway, which is just good for Harry to know because,
makes up a little bit for the last year where they got virtually no education in a rather important subject given the circumstances.
Yes. So that's all good. Plus, Lupin is going to himself be a werewolf, so it's going to help start teaching Harry like it's a real. He's like the exact opposite of Lockhart, basically.
Right.
Whereas, let's see, I wrote this down. Blah, 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 blah. I want to make sure I say it right. Yeah. So in Chamber, he hires Lockhart to show Harry like how someone who has all the things most people think they want can be a total buffoon. But in Prisoner, you have the exact opposite, where he hires Lupin to show Harry how someone who is considered vicious and an outcast by pretty much everyone in the wizarding world can actually be the most pure of heart.
Yeah. And I think this is another one that we see on really fine display just by way of like, you know, Ron and Hermione a little bit. Like they both, I think Ron has a line in the Shrieking Shack where he shouts like, "Get away from me, werewolf!" And it's kind of like, ooh, like even like Ron is like, you know, he comes from a family regarded as blood traders because they don't follow the beat of the pureblood drum.
Yeah.
And even Ron has got like a little bit of a preconceived notion about what it might mean for somebody to be a werewolf.
Right. Like it's just sort of innately bad.
Right. And I think that this is, it's a very important thing that Dumbledore is trying to instill. And it's the kind of thing that we know that Harry's goodness just sort of like radiates in every direction. And this is not a type of prejudice that he, you know, keeps close to his heart or anything like that.
No, it is not. However, you do say it radiates in every direction, and that's true. But it's another reason I think Dumbledore hires Lupin, because there is one situation in particular or a conversation Harry and Lupin has that he does need a little bit of guidance on.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wherein, so it's after Lupin is, they've done like their first Boggart lesson, or their first Dementor lesson, I guess. And he's telling him about the Dementor's kiss.
Yes.
And what the fate that awaits Sirius Black. And at this point, Harry is aware that Sirius was the Secret Keeper.
Okay.
And at this point, Harry says that he deserves it. And Lupin is all like, do you think anyone really deserves that? And Harry, like, pretty quickly is like, yes, for some things.
Right.
Like, so, like, at that moment, Harry is like, Dementor's kiss, that guy, absolutely.
Right.
However, it is good that Lupin has this conversation with him, because by the end of the story, Harry is going to completely 180 on this exact situation. And when he and is unwilling to let Sirius or Lupin finish off Peter, even though by then he has realized Peter is guilty and has been hiding in his dorm room for the past 12 years, and whose crimes are even worse.
Right. Yes. Yeah, well, living in his dorm room for the past 3 years.
3 years. Sorry.
But living as a rat with the Weasleys for 12 years.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. Yes.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean exactly. It's like Harry, and that's something that I think is like you're right. Like it's that need for Harry to learn this like concept of like mercy a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as the story progresses and we see a bunch of different situations around this, it's something that Dumbledore values in a huge way and thinks is vitally important in terms of like maintaining one's goodness.
Yeah.
Because this is sort of like the central premise behind why he asks Snape to murder him instead of Draco, as to not like destroy Draco's soul along the way or damage it. And also just the fact that like Harry doesn't end up using anything other than Expelliarmus against Voldemort.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like he doesn't go and aim to kill. Like he is still attempting all the way through their final battle to show mercy and to not take that violent route.
Yeah.
And you know,
obviously, well, I think it's not that Harry doesn't think that the bad guys don't deserve to be defeated.
Right.
And like punishment, because like he does tell Wormtail that like, you know, we'll bring you to the Dementors.
Right.
And so like I think in his mind he's like, yeah, you're still going to get the kiss, bro.
Right.
But so what's really important there though is that it's not that he doesn't think Wormtail doesn't deserve to be like punished. It is that the reason he stops them isn't because he doesn't care about Wormtail's death. It's that he cares about Sirius and Lupin's soul, like becoming murderers.
Good point. Yes. Yeah. Yep. That's very well said.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I don't know if we've totally touched on perfectly here in regards to hiring Lupin, as just like another note, is that we know that in Philosopher's Stone, the Mirror of Erised is a very big piece of Dumbledore's big plan.
Yes.
It's the opportunity to see see what Harry's heart truly desires.
Yeah. What's he
and
dealing with here?
What's he dealing with? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is this kid? And what he learns about him is that Harry is very good, and that the thing that he desires the most is just his family and being able to spend time or be with them at all. Something that
Right.
he doesn't have permitted to him. And so coming into this year, he's got Lupin teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts, where the very first lesson is going to be facing down a boggart. And I think what ultimately I think he's trying to learn about Harry with this particular lesson is what Harry's greatest fear actually is.
I think so.
I think this is kind of like the opposite.
It's
of
like the
Marathon episode.
inverse. It's like
Yeah.
not what's your greatest desire, what is your greatest fear. And I would like I would suggest that Dumbledore expects it to be a Dementor.
Okay, you think that would be like sort of like his. I want to test this theory.
Yeah, like I think one Dumbledore is trying to learn this specific information because, like in Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, we see Dumbledore teaching this exact lesson to his class.
Right.
And as far as we know, I don't think he was Lupin's teacher for Defense Against the Dark Arts.
It seems like he would have been. Yeah, he would have just been headmaster at that point in time.
Yeah,
So
which-
not likely teaching.
Yeah, because he would definitely was headmaster because he's the one who let Lupin come.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe he did. Maybe he like also teaches classes from time to time. He never does that while Harry's there.
Right.
But I suppose he could have. But either way, it makes it seem like Dumbledore told Lupin to do this lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is. Yeah. When you see in Crimes of Grindelwald, it's the same lesson that he also enacts. And I even think like you can take some examples from what he learns about Newt in that particular instance. Because what he learns about Newt is that Newt's greatest fear is like having to work an office job.
Yeah.
And Newt is ultimately expelled from Hogwarts. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, why did Dumbledore like not step in and stop it? And part of me almost just thinks that Dumbledore sees the value in what Newt has to offer. And it's like, he doesn't want to go and work at the ministry. He doesn't want to go and work an office job. Like, he's a highly talented wizard who has a very specific set of skills.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to finish his like proper education.
Right.
Like,
It's almost like a mercy. If like if you don't want an office job, like school is just like one layer under that.
it's just holding you back. Like, let's go put you
Yeah.
out in the field where you can continue to learn about the things you love.
but also in debt you to me.
Also that.
Also
Yeah.
that. One of Dumbledore's good old tricks. Boy, I talked to Snape about that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Big one. But so I think Dumbledore, like the Dementors are around the school, but I think he hired Lupin and planned on the Boggart test in particular. One, to see what Harry's greatest fear was, but this is but I think Dumbledore, having seen what Harry saw in the Mirror of Erised, suspects that Harry's Boggart will be a Dementor.
So do you think from there then that this is like set up for teaching the Patronus lesson?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
I do. That's what I'm all of what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at is that because and it's like so as the story goes, Harry encounters a Dementor before he has the Boggart lesson,
Yeah.
which like helps inform his thought. But like Lupin says, this suggests your greatest fear is fear itself, which I think is true even if he doesn't run into that Dementor.
Yep.
And I don't think you need to know what a Dementor is for the Boggart to turn into that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I follow what you mean.
Right.
Yeah,
If your
because-
greatest fear is fear, it will always be a Dementor.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like like the Dementor is almost just taking the true shape of fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think. So I think Dumbledore suspects it will be a Dementor and knows that Lupin is a good Patronus teacher and is kind of telling Lupin ahead of time, even like, you're going to, teach him the Patronuses.
Right.
Yeah.
So and I mean, you might be thinking like, okay, well that feels like a little bit like a leap. And I don't totally think that it is, because the Dementors are kind of a big deal to Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Like, he's already very angry that they're going to be stationed at the school at all. We know that when they swarm the Quidditch pitch, he's extremely upset and they are like forced back away, and it's like a whole thing. But even beyond that, when Harry returns from the graveyard in Goblet of Fire and tells Dumbledore everything that he saw, that Voldemort has returned, and then Dumbledore's having a conversation with Fudge. Fudge is ultimately, or the first thing that Dumbledore is going to tell Fudge is like, plan step number 1. first thing we need to do is rid Azkaban of the Dementors.
Yes.
It's like
Can't do it.
Before any other tactics are in play, it's get the Dementors out of the equation.
Yeah.
And so to me, what that says is that like Dumbledore sees Dementors as a massive threat to his contingency here, to everything he's attempting to enact.
Well, they're just such terrible creatures, and they like would almost uniquely have the ability to like take Harry out of the equation without interfering with the prophecy.
Yeah.
Because they could perform the kiss on him effectively, which would, just turn Harry into like a husk of a person.
Right. At which point Voldemort could still, because you're not dead.
Because he's not dead, in which case one could die at the hand of the other, and Voldemort could still just kill him.
Right, and he would be defenseless.
And he would be defenseless against it. Yeah.
In fact, I mean, it's entirely possible that Dumbledore was hyperfixated on Dementors because of Sirius Black's breakout, because if he believes that Sirius Black is an agent of Voldemort's and that the Dementors will fall in step with Voldemort upon his resurrection, he may even be operating under the belief that the only reason that Sirius was capable of escaping from their prison is because they aided.
They aided him.
Right.
Oh, you're right. That could be part of it too.
Right. It's like nobody's ever done it before, but now we have the Dark Lord's #1 follower who just manages to get out.
Yeah.
When his guards are the people who we worry are going to go and follow who Sirius Black also follows.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
so for Dumbledore, he's like, well, I obviously see what happened.
Right. Yeah. It's like we get like the Dementors, they let him out.
Right. Yeah. Like of course, this is no surprise to anyone. Like the Dementors are pro Voldemort.
Right.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So there's all of that, and then it's just crucial to him that Harry know how to fight Dementors, because when Voldemort comes back, they will be a problem.
Yes.
So he wants to make sure that he can fight the Dementors. And let's see. And then also just knowing Lupin helps Harry feel, not that Harry needs coaching in this department, but Harry never cares that Lupin's a werewolf at all. And it just helps Harry have that broader scope of what counts as good and what counts as evil.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see. And then, the other, so that's I think what Dumbledore's the main lesson he's trying to get. He's trying to learn from Harry about what his Boggart is, and then also have Lupin teach him about the value of souls and how to fight Dementors. And then we also have another situation that I think Dumbledore is capitalizing upon, which is the Buckbeak situation of it all. Because I don't think the plot twist with Sirius happening to be innocent. Obviously, Dumbledore didn't expect that. So he didn't expect Harry to learn the value of an innocent life through that or anything.
Yes, yeah. It's hard to anticipate the fact that this person who you thought to be a convicted murderer may in fact be innocent. But in the meantime, Hagrid basically delivers him the exact same scenario. On a silver platter.
Yes, and he is there to capitalize.
He is. And then even ends up weaving the two narratives together by the end of the story.
Yeah.
Because one is the escape for the other.
Yes. So he basically has Hagrid just inform the Golden Trio every step of the way about Buckbeak's trial, which is a trial that, frankly, Dumbledore absolutely, certainly could have cleared up in 15 minutes after breakfast one day if he wanted to. I mean, it is such a bigger thing than it needs to be, because people at Hogwarts are injured all the time. Neville is injured during flying lessons on day one, and it's is anyone we should fire Madam Hooch? Of course not.
No, yeah. You think Augustus Longbottom was hey, now wait a second.
Yeah.
Madam Hooch.
Right.
Bringing you before the board of the Wizengamot.
Yeah, no, not like that.
Yeah.
People get there's a day when Goyle gets, or the whole class gets splashed with the swelling solution in potions, and it's not anyone's oh, Snape, not good at potions.
Right.
Get him out of here.
Yeah. I mean, and then not to mention Harry has to regrow entire armful of bones in Chamber of Secrets. Draco has a
because his teacher did that to him.
Yes, because his
Yes.
teacher did that to him. Meanwhile, Draco has like a flesh wound that, you know, it's like he like wears the sling for months on end, but it's like one of those things where Madame Pomfrey must just be like rolling her eyes straight into the back of her head, being like,
Yeah.
He's fine. I fixed him.
Oh, I know. Like, yeah, upon any inspection at all, this would not hold up at all.
At all.
You know,
Yes,
like,
yeah.
I mean, the other thing is that hippogriffs are OWL creatures. You're supposed to learn about them.
Right.
And like Hagrid effectively tells people what to do. There's a whole class of people who hear him tell you how to handle hippogriffs, and a whole class of people who see Draco blatantly not listen.
Right.
Like there's nothing like Dumbledore can just walk in and be like, "What are you talking about? Look at his arm. Is he fine? He's fine." You know about hippogriffs. We study them for OWLs. Like most adult wizards know about them.
Right.
Especially the people on the committee for the disposal of dangerous magical creatures.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You know?
You must imagine that these are people who are deeply acquainted with the magical creatures at large. Like,
Yes.
you know, what they are trying to do is enact safety. I mean, I think even it goes back to like people more similar to like Newt, where it's like fantastic beasts and where to find them, because the whole idea is that like if we're going to interact with these things, we should make sure we're doing so harmoniously.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I you know, it's like even like the McNair thing, it always like baffles me that he's like so upset that he doesn't get to like murder like an animal.
Yeah.
It's like who is this excited for this?
Do you know, I've been reading a little bit more about McNair.
Okay.
Or like some of the Death Eaters here, and it seems like they had like certain specialities. Like you kind of just think they're like all evil and stuff, and they just
Yeah.
kind of all do all evil things.
Right.
But like it seems like there were a few that like Bellatrix was specifically talented at torturing
Okay.
people. Lucius Malfoy was like particularly known for torturing muggles, where McNair was known for killing people. And there was someone else who was like really good at the Imperious Curse. Like they had specific roles in the army.
Oh wow.
And McNair is the one who goes and talks to the giants. And Hagrid says that they got on so well because he was able to talk to the new Gurg about killing, because McNair loved killing as much as Carcass.
Where
Not Carcass.
Where did
Carcass
all
is
this
the second one.
information come from?
I mean, Voldemort just says, or no, I think Moody says it. I think he talks about like the roles of the different Death Eaters.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that. I was like, this is great information.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of so there was that. So McNair just like, it seems weird, but he does specifically love killing stuff.
Got it.
Like
Okay.
like maliciously in a evil, dark way.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, there is that.
Not a good hang.
Not a good hang.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
His kind of hanging is from a rope.
Oof.
You know? Whew, that was a dark
Yikes.
joke.
That was a dark joke. Yep.
But so yeah, the whole case is very dumb, but it is a clear situation where an innocent party is going to be murdered, and is a very good lesson for Harry on valuing innocence. Specifically, that it is like more important to spare and to save an innocent life than it is to punish a guilty one.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the big Wumbo lesson.
And that's the big, huge Wumbo lesson, because, I mean, that's exactly what Harry ultimately has to do when he goes into the Forbidden Forest again to sacrifice his own life. Like, it is more important to him in that moment to save the lives of everybody that Voldemort stands to, you know, kill or hurt or torture or whatever, command.
Even though there is still the big bad guy left to be punished.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Like, I haven't completed my mission, but this is still more important.
It's still more important to save everybody else than to punish the big bad. And,
Yeah.
and that is like the thing that ends up making all the difference. Like,
Yes.
it is that specific mindset. It is the way in which he doesn't retaliate. He goes in, you know, unarmed, unwilling to defend himself. He just takes what Voldemort will dish out.
Right.
And that is ultimately what allows for the Horcrux inside of Harry to be destroyed.
Yes, and the Dumbledore's big plan of it all, though, is that at this point, Dumbledore already knows Harry is a Horcrux.
Yes.
And he knows that Harry needs to die.
Yes.
And, like, he needs Harry to choose to die.
And the unfortunate part, like we made an entire video about the single most important sentence in all of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like phrase. And it's the glimmer of triumph that comes in
Yes.
Goblet of Fire
Yes.
when he discovers that Voldemort takes a piece of Harry's blood inside of himself in order to return. And that glimmer of triumph is because all this time, Dumbledore has known what Harry was going to have to do. And
Yes.
Unfortunately, what it meant was our hero must die.
Must die.
And so it's like for Dumbledore, the moment that he learns that piece of information, it is like, oh my goodness, like I have been raising him as a pig to slaughter. This is what had to happen. But now Voldemort has made a grave mistake.
Grave mistake.
And which is fitting because he was at a graveyard.
At a graveyard,
when
yes.
he did it.
Yes.
And he has permitted Harry a way to return.
Yes.
So
yes.
it is, to me, that is like that is the moment. That
Yeah.
is like that is like the fulcrum where it's like Dumbledore's like, we're winning.
Oh, we got it.
Yeah.
We got it. As long as Harry doesn't know he's going to survive.
Exactly.
Right. So that's the other tricky part. Of course, that hasn't happened yet. But like after that point, it is all about making sure Harry like will choose to go die, but he can't know he needs to choose to go die.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very, very narrow tightrope to walk, especially when Dumbledore himself will eventually sacrifice his own life and not be there to guide Harry across this narrow bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is tricky business, but the good news is he set the groundwork for it very early here in Prisoner with Buckbeak, and fortuitously for him with Sirius Black.
Yes, Sirius Black as well. So that does largely bring us, I believe, to the end. Do you have any other notes for Prisoner of Azkaban?
I don't think I have any more notes about Dumbledore's big plan, although if you guys have any things you noticed or things we missed, please let us know down in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or anything like that.
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, do you have a review for
I
us?
do have a review for us, Ben. This is from Roz Kuzmarski, I think I'm saying that right. Who says, this is the only podcast I listen to on 1x speed, which is such a
that is high praise.
What high praise. What a fun way to phrase it. It says, this is the only podcast I listen to on 1x speed because I want to be able to digest every point that is made thoroughly as Jay and Ben expertly dissect the story page by page. This has been the podcast I look forward to coming out every week for the last year. Full marks, 5 stars to Griffin Door. And then he has a question. It says, as you guys have discussed, the Dementors possibly sensing Voldemort's piece of soul in Harry as the reason they tried to go for the kiss on him, it made me wonder. Instead of planning for Harry to die to eliminate that piece of soul, why does Dumbledore not simply have the Dementors extracted from his body? If the souls are not entwined so intricately that allows only one to be destroyed upon death, why could the Dementors not target extraction of just Voldemort's soul piece? Or for that matter, why can they not perform the kiss on any of the Horcruxes? So really kind of two questions there. As for like, why does Dumbledore let them just kiss Harry? I think as Dumbledore sees Dementors as just like the living embodiment of fear and evil, and I don't think he trusts them for one hot second to only take one soul, which I'm not even sure they could do.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it is a very interesting question for sure, because I know that we've tackled sort of that concept before of like, can a Dementor destroy a Horcrux, because it would be removing it from its container and therefore just gone into whatever Dementor digestive juices exist within them, whatever magical force that happens to be. But yeah, I would have to imagine that it would seem like almost like comparable to the way that Hermione reacts to like the fiend fire to destroy the diadem.
Yeah.
Where she's sort of like, I never would have done it. Like, which always sounds ludicrous. You're sort of like, wait, Hermione, you knew of a way to destroy these things. You knew of fiend fire, and like you guys never discussed it.
I know. Like what? Come on, you guys wore that locket around forever. Like go to the beach or something, you know?
Right. Yes, it is hard to contextualize the kind of evil you'd have to like wrap your head around, like performing that spell would be committing.
Yeah.
Because I think that is sort of like what it has to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it would be such a vile thing for people so good. It's almost like the opposite of the Patronus. Like, you know, the Death Eaters don't have that kind of like light within them to be able to create a Patronus. And I think that it's almost like anybody so good as to be able to cast a Patronus would never cast Fiend Fire.
Yeah.
And so I think that sort of goes back to like why would Voldemort never use a Dementor? It's like because it is so not his methodology.
Yeah.
Like a Dementor is just everything that Dumbledore stands against. He doesn't like them in any way.
Yeah.
There's not a viable application.
Yeah, not a good application for them. And then, could a Dementor destroy a Horcrux? Is the second half of this, and I know we've made a whole video on it, and I don't remember what we said, but I'm going to tackle it off the fly here, and hopefully it matches what we said in the video.
Right.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, if you're right, I think if a Dementor kissed Harry and sucked his soul out, yes, that would destroy the Horcrux inside of Harry.
Right.
That would effectively work. Could a Dementor perform the kiss on like the cup or something?
Right.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Because it's not a living creature.
It's not a living creature. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Dementors feed on like positive emotions and happy thoughts and stuff, and so there'd be nothing for them to feed on. For the cup. The cup doesn't have emotions for them to feed on.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Unless the soul would radiate any version of that, but I don't know that it would.
I don't know that it would. And to that point, I think uniquely they could destroy the one inside of Harry because Harry has his own soul that does have positive thoughts.
Right.
But like the like Voldemort sees the Dementors as allies. Like he's not afraid they're going to attack him or anything, or the Death Eaters ever.
Right.
Like that. Like I think the same would be true of could a Dementor kill like I think it would have to be a living thing, but I also feel like maybe they couldn't like destroy the Horcrux in Nagini.
Okay.
Because like that Horcrux is got nothing but because it's a Horcrux, it's nothing but negativity.
Right. Well, so there's a bunch of different questions involved because like the locket, for example, was incredibly difficult to destroy, but we don't really know if it's incredibly difficult to destroy for any particular reason or if it's like the enchantments placed upon it. Like a Horcrux doesn't make something like inherently like heavily defended.
Yeah. And you can make something a Horcrux. Like Voldemort is making regular objects Horcrux and then adding all of the protections to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like a question, and I feel like sometimes like the movie maybe blurs this for me a little bit with Nagini in particular, because there is a scene, I think, at the Battle of Hogwarts where Ron is shooting like a green spell at Nagini, and it just like keeps bouncing off.
Yeah.
And it very much looks like he's casting Avada Kedavra at Nagini, and it just simply doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the big concept, I feel like the best outline of information we get about Horcruxes comes from Hermione, who is sort of comparing the container that holds the Horcrux versus like your body as a person. And she's like, if I ran you through with a sword, your soul would be in perfect shape, but your body would die.
Right.
But your soul would be unaffected. And then she's like, a Horcrux is the exact opposite. It's only as good as its container. And so then you have to wonder, like, Harry obviously more susceptible. So like I think I agree with you. If the Dementor's kiss came and gave Harry and sucked his soul out and Voldemort's soul with it, I don't know if they could discern. I think it would just take everything in one go. But then Nagini does feel like a risky choice because Nagini is not like goblin made metal that is resistant to all sorts of different forms of magic.
Right.
Like Nagini is like a living, breathing creature,
Yeah.
albeit a magical creature. Magical snake. So you have to wonder, like, was the Sword of Gryffindor even required to destroy Nagini. Like that is what Neville uses in the end, and we know that is like the method. But like if it was just any other sword,
right.
Could you just slice a snake in half?
I think you could. I think if you just chop Nagini's head off, that's still the end of her.
That would still
because she's
do
still
it.
just a living creature who, if dies, like then the container is destroyed and thus the Horcrux is destroyed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of like what I would come down to for Nagini in particular is like then the big question is like does the Dementor's kiss like work on beasts? Like, could it attack an animal the same way that it could attack?
Right.
And
I don't know. It's like serious. Like, if he stayed a dog, would he have been safe?
He may have been safe, but he says that he was able to get out because his emotions were so much less when he was like in dog form.
Right.
And so again, you might have the case with Nagini where the Dementors wouldn't really like target Nagini because it just wouldn't necessarily feel like there was enough emotion coming from Nagini to really like harvest upon.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting question. If there was like a way, like if the piece of soul in the cup, for example, was almost like in the bowl of the cup versus like
right.
inside the fabric
metal,
of the metal. Yeah. It's almost like could it like slurp it?
Right.
You know?
Then
I think yes.
I think so. But I feel like the protections, at least that Voldemort has put around his regular Horcruxes, like I don't think they could like get the kiss through that. And I think because they're objects, they couldn't kiss them.
True. Yeah.
So I think if it's a living creature, or like a human, like Harry, then that would work. Nagini's a tricky one. You're right. Can they like suck the souls out of animals? Because it's almost like a human soul in an animal. So
you know what's a really weird question is whether or not they had tried to suck the soul of Voldemort Prime out of Quirrell.
Oh, that is an interesting one. Like, could that is really interesting.
Right? Isn't that a weird one? Because
Right.
it's like then his soul would be like digested again or whatever the heck Dementors do with the souls.
Yeah, what would happen? Because he still have the Horcruxes.
He would have the Horcruxes, but where would he be?
Where would he be? Yeah, because that's still technically the prime piece of his soul. Man, that's a weird one. It feels because then his Horcruxes would still exist too.
They would exist, but what would they be anchoring?
Yeah, what would they be anchoring? You're right. They're not. I mean, it would be like.
The reason that this is confusing, in case anybody's like, one of the other Horcruxes would just become Voldemort Prime. It's not how the Horcruxes work.
Are supposed to work. Yeah,
it's a little confusing. Like,
especially because you're introduced to it with the diary.
You are introduced to it with the diary, which almost brings a physical human back. But that is because of the unique capabilities of the diary, not because of the unique capabilities of Horcruxes at large. But the rest of the Horcruxes, all they are doing is anchoring Voldemort's soul to like the mortal realm so that he can't pass through the invisible barrier to death. So if the Dementor sucked out the piece of Voldemort Prime, it's like there's no body left behind for it other than, I guess, Quirrell's. But
yeah, man, that's tricky. I think either the Horcruxes would continue to work and he would like become like he could like I don't know, like possess the Dementor or something. He'd have like a merged being.
Like okay, like almost like take over.
Yeah, that'd be pretty scary.
That is pretty scary, and I mean, interestingly, like we have a kind of like a light working theory that Death, who met the Peverell brothers on the Lonely Road once upon a time, was almost like a more highly developed Dementor.
Yeah, we have that. That's like certainly not confirmed, but it's a very fun theory.
It's a very fun theory.
Yeah.
What if that was the original? Like, what if that Death
that kind
came
of thing
about in the same way?
Yeah. Of course, then even Dementors can like dissipate or something. The other thing I think that could happen is that Voldemort Prime just is destroyed, but that wouldn't mean that the rest of the Horcruxes were destroyed. His like that part of him would no longer be able to come back, but his other soul pieces would still be protected inside of the Horcruxes. I think is how that would work. They wouldn't all like just die with him.
No, they wouldn't. But
Yeah.
but what are they? What are they anchoring?
Well, I don't. It's like they're not anchoring anything. They just sort of independently now exist.
Right.
Right. So like,
He'd be even less than the meanest ghost. At that point.
yeah.
Like,
He wouldn't have like a being to himself, but like for example, not that this is how they're supposed to work, but like the diary could still come back.
right. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, chronologically speaking, there would be an obvious ace in the hole. Which
Yeah.
would be the diary.
Which would be the diary, and like like they wear the locket, and it certainly affects Ron pretty badly, and like that piece of Voldemort certainly seems to know Ron by the end.
Yes.
It seems like it seems possible that if you wore the locket long enough, it could like start flitting back and forth, and like.
I mean, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Ron is like, do you think that at some points in time the Horcrux was actively like occupying Ron's body, and like it was like
Right.
learning bits and pieces about Ron
Yeah.
by being able to like sort of like flit in and out.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way.
I've never really thought about it that way either, but it does seem like what it's preying on is like Ron's like greatest insecurities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not insecurities that it seems like he would have had, that the Horcrux would have had a major opportunity to have, other than maybe like some jealousy of Hermione and Harry. It's like, it almost seems like these are much, much, much deeper inside of
It seems
him.
like it's like able to like read the fears of his heart or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like try and turn those things against him. But it's like I wonder if they had continued to wear the locket indefinitely, if something like what was starting to happen to Ginny could happen to them. But like, that might be another rare exception where there's like the ring, it's like if you put it on, it just killed you.
It just killed you.
Yeah, and it's like I don't think that one could ever really affect Voldemort, or could ever find its way back to life per se. It'd be like, how would you? Like, it would just be like a really dangerous object, or like the cup. We never see how the cup works. It feels like you probably shouldn't drink from it.
It definitely feels like you
Yeah.
shouldn't drink from it.
The diadem feels like you shouldn't put it on.
Right.
But maybe you could, and it would just sort of like start telling you what to do and possess you or something. Like it seems like there would be ways for him to come back still, even if that wasn't the intended use of the other Horcruxes.
I mean, it is kind of interesting. Like, I wonder anywhere along the way, those are like the extra deep set backup plans, and maybe the other Horcruxes are in some ways meant to behave more similarly to the diary in extreme worst case scenario, where the diary is so obvious because you pour your heart into your words,
Yeah.
and it tethers your connections in a really easy to describe way.
Yeah.
Especially to someone
It's
like
meant to be interacted with.
it's meant to be interacted with, and then especially to someone like Ginny, who is of sort of like just such a young age that vulnerability made her especially susceptible. But then I wonder if like any amount of it is almost like, well, if somebody drank from the cup, would that make them susceptible to, the piece of soul flitting inside of it? Or if you put on the ring and it killed you, does that end up like providing that piece of soul with like a dead body to occupy?
Right.
Or, like rinse and repeat, you wear the locket for too long, like it could like actually like seep into your sense of being. If you put the diadem on your head, then it like can get inside of your mind, because what the diadem was meant to do was like, was he choosing these artifacts because they all uniquely had...
Yeah. Hard to say. It feels like he was choosing them because they belong to the founders.
Oh, of course,
yeah.
But I wonder if each of the founders just inherently had something. So, like, these are all their artifacts for a reason. They all resonated with them for a reason. So maybe they all had some type of like deep piece of themselves, meant to be inside of them.
Yeah. I don't know.
We've lost the thread.
We've lost the thread. I think. Yeah. Well, because the Quirrell question was so sneaky. That was so interesting.
I know that's a thinker.
Yeah. I mean, to that end, could a Dementor just find like mist vapor Voldemort and just suck him up?
Yeah, like a vacuum
like
cleaner.
a vacuum cleaner. Yeah.
Just sort of like what? Like a Voldemort Cheez-It.
Yeah. Yum. Tasty.
That's what I like to think of the Dementor is just like trouncing through the woods on holiday.
Yeah.
You know, a backpack. It's little Dementor children following along behind it. He's got like a camera hanging around its
Well,
neck.
kids, look at this.
Look at that.
Gather round, children. We found a feast.
Everyone take a slap.
Everyone take a slurp. Oh my gosh, that's disgusting. All right. Nothing like Voldemort flavored smoothie. There you go.
That's it.
That's how we're ending today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the next edition to Dumbledore's Big Plan. But make sure you tune in next week as we dive into a brand new book, The Goblet of Fire, here on Through the Griffin Door.
Today's episode was edited by Ethan Edghill. Vaishon Brandon does our art. Catherine Stein is our production manager, and the show is hosted by me and Jonathan Carlin.